Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk to you about a show that you may not even heard of. And it's probably because this show only had a pilot and never got picked up on Amazon. And this show is called Love You More. The show stars Bridget Everett. And you know her, she's the comedian, cabaret singer. She pops in of like so many different shows and movies. It's hard not to like recognize her, you know? Like I know you've seen her in something before. I first saw her in Two Broke Girls. She was also in the movie Patty Cakes. In this show, she plays Karen. And Karen is kind of like this sad, snarky, rude, horny woman who just goes through the motions of life in New York City. This show was directed by the one and only Bob. Now I know what you're thinking to yourself, how come I've never heard of this show before? Well, back in 2017, Amazon was doing this experimental thing where they had kind of like this week of like pilots. And they had several shows that was in the pilot stage. And whichever one was the most popular would get picked up. As you can tell by the title and stuff, this show did not get picked up, which is a shame because it was a really good show. There was only one problem I had with that, and I'll get into that later. Now, this show is listed as a comedy, but I look at it more as a dramedy because it's part drama and part comedy. So the show starts off with a woman named Karen. And she's in a bar, and it's just a typical, like, you know, bar, like it's dark, it's pool tables, a little dirty, dingy, some dingy type people, you know, they just there to drink. But I've noticed that Karen is extremely overdressed to be in this bar. I'm just like, she must be in the wrong type of place. She looks like she's out to go clubbing, but she's at a bar instead. And she's there to pick up guys. And she starts to get, like, hit on kind of by, like, two different dudes. One dude's this black dude. He like gives her the look. And the other guy's a Hispanic man. He's by the bar and he's giving her the look. So she's interested in both. But she's more interested in the Hispanic dude. As she gets up to walk over there to talk to him, the black dude shows up. And it turns out he's short. A lot shorter than her. He's like 5'3". I think she's like 6 feet or something like that. I forgot how tall Bridget is, but so she gets snarky and rude with him about his height and stuff, and I'm just like, well, that's messed up because you know how it is. Like, you know, people just want to be accepted. People just want to date. Some people just don't care about height, size, age, you know, gender, stuff like that. And so it was kind of really rude how she just like made fun of his weight, not weight, but made fun of his height to like his face and stuff. So he goes away and she goes over to the other. And when she goes over to the other dude, he asks who the other guy was, and she once again makes fun of this dude. And I'm just like, why is she so like snarky and rude to people? And then so dude, when she's talking to the one dude, she asks him straight up, you know, you like big girls? And he's like, yeah. I'm glad they mentioned this because you really don't see this with a lot of shows when it comes to like bigger characters. Because in actuality, big women do ask that question, you know, because a lot of men don't like big women. And if they do it in secret. And so they're talking more, and the one black dude, he's still into her, buying her drinks, and she's getting annoyed because she's talking to the other guy. And so the next thing you know, the one dude's all like, you like being crapped on? She's like, whoa. So she don't like that. So she decides, screw him. So after being creeped out by that one guy in the bar, she decides, well, screw it. She'll just take the shorter guy home. And she does. And they get it on. They were clickety-clacking it all night long. Now you gotta give it up to Bridget. Like, when she films like sex scenes, she really films them. Well, not really, like really realistically, but she makes them look realistic and everything. So that's always great. But one thing I've noticed about her, and when it comes to sex scenes, is that, okay, the dudes are always completely butt naked. And she always keeps like her clothes on. And she keeps them on in this. She did it in a movie as well. And when she's doing it in this, she's not even showing her breasts, which was kind of weird because she's very known for showing like her breasts and stuff. Let's put a little bit pin in that a little bit later. But yeah, the dude is completely butt naked on the back of her, just doing it. And then like, he later climbs on top and they're just like getting it on and stuff like that. And so like while they're doing it, of course, because it's a comedy show, they're talking and they're making little bizarre jokes or just like weird banter back and forth, which is really distracting. And then next thing you know, she starts to get a call on her cell. It's from some guy. And then so she's trying to reach for her cell phone as she's like doing this one dude. So it's kind of like, aren't you kind of like not enjoying yourself? Like, can't you just like leave that call like as it is and just like call the dude back later? And next thing you know, her roommate comes in. And her roommate's completely like flabbergasted and shocked. And so like cause she thought that because of all the shouting and stuff, something was like bad happening, but it actually wasn't. And so then her roommate leaves. And so, and then one thing that happens that I find really interesting in this is that, like I said, when she films like sex scenes, at least she does it in a realistic type of way. Like, cause one thing that always bugs me about sex scenes in like TV shows is that they're so weird. They're like so like majestic and they're so like beautiful. It's almost like somebody's trying to like make art, but like out of sex, and it just has this philosophical feel to it, and it always like bugs me in TV shows. And then movies that kind of like know better, like they're a little bit more, but they're not like realistic looking like they are in the Highlander movies. And so as this is going on, like he's from behind, like he's doing her from behind, like she's not on top, which I'm so glad. I'm tired of seeing women in TV shows, streaming shows, movies that are always on top. I'm tired, and it's nice to see somebody actually doing it like dolly wise and stuff. And so like another thing that I appreciate in this is that like that's realistic is like something happens, I forgot what, and I think he's about to come or something like that, or something happens to the condom. And then she's all like, it doesn't matter, like she has the morning after pill. I'm thinking to myself, that's a very realistic type of thing that a lot of people used to do. I remember like I used to talk to people in college and they used to always tell me about how like, they use the morning after pill and stuff like that. But you never hear that in TV shows and movies. And so they get done doing it. And then that's one thing I'm getting really tired of seeing once again in TV show streamings is that I'm tired of seeing completely butt naked men and women who wear their clothes. It makes no sense. It's like that in the show Harlots that's on Hulu, which is a great show. But what's so weird about that is that show, it's a show about like I think like 1400s prostitution. And so you think women would be the ones who would be naked, but no, it's like the men and stuff. So that's just kind of weird. If you're not going to show both, then don't show none at all. At least show the woman like topless or something. But it's not like that. It's just like in the show Fleck that's on Amazon. The first opening scene, there are two naked, completely butt naked men. You see everything. And the main actress, she's 100% clothed and everything. Well, that's because she's one dude overdosed, so she's trying to like bring him back because she wasn't involved in this. But like still, it's like, why do I have to keep seeing naked men on TV? The next morning, they just like sleep it off. He's completely still butt naked and she still have her clothes on. Which the only reason why she probably keeps her clothes on is probably because, in real life, she's like, well, also in the show, she's like a big girl. And so she kind of doesn't want people to like, she probably feels self-conscious a little bit, But I always found Bridget to be a very sexy woman. Like, even though she's big, she's like very gorgeous and stuff. And so by this time, this dude who's like very desperate to get with her, he's doing like the creepy kind of thing. He's kind of coming on very strongly to where he thinks him and her are kind of like a couple type thing. Well, she realizes she's late for work because he hit the snooze button on the alarm. So she goes in the bathroom, take the morning after pill, and she drops the morning after pill in the sink. And so she's desperately trying to get it. And I don't know if she actually takes one or not because one of them fell down the sink. And so then her dude comes in and he's still acting like, he's her man and stuff. Like in his mind, he thinks they are. After this one little encounter, which I guess, he figured, she must be into him because she passed up the other dude and went for him and he's a lot shorter and she don't like short guys. So then after that, he leaves and then she goes to work. So after she gets out the cab, she goes to work and she's greeted by a guy named Angel. And he works at the place. He mostly does like not really yard work because they live in apartments in New York. So he mostly like take out the trash, clean up here and there, stuff like that. And they're talking about her love life and he tells her, I need to hook you up with my cousin because, he'll treat you like an angel and all this other stuff. But she's not really interested. Which is kind of weird because when she goes to the bar, she's clearly looking for a guy. When we see Karen at work, we see that she works with kids that have Down syndrome. And that's really touching. Like, you don't see that much at all ever in any kind of TV show. For the first time ever, we saw that in Power Rangers just recently with Power Rangers Dino Fury. So that's nice to get that kind of awareness out. By the way, these actors and actresses that have the Down syndrome, they are hilarious. They are great at comedy. Like, they are just funny. I think they should have their own show. Seriously, like, you will not believe some of the stuff they say and the things that they do. And a lot of them actually are, they do act full time and stuff. I know one is an American Horror Story, I think that show is called. She was in Coven. And as we see Karen at work, she's pretty much just like going through the motions. She's just like cleaning up behind people, telling them not to do this, not to do that. She is still her snarky, sarcastic self, but she's not super rude because she's trying to be like very respectful for them. And so that's really nice because, we don't want to see that. And so basically she's just like, just going, like I said, through the motions. And then we finally get a name drop for the title. See, there's this one girl, I believe her name is Megan, and she's always telling everybody in the room that she loves them. And every time she goes to Karen, she's like, I love you. And then Karen will reply, love you more. And so I'm like, oh, okay, that's where the title comes from. But it's kind of like one of those things you will kind of miss because if you don't pay attention, you won't really hear it because Karen says it very low, very fast, and somewhat sarcastically and stuff. Like, she's not even paying attention when she says it. So the group of kids, I believe they're kids, or maybe young adults. I mean, they're played by young adults, but I'm not really sure the age range. I don't think they ever say. They're getting a new recruit by the name of Andy. So as Karen's doing her thing, take care of the kids, next thing you know, as she's bending over, because she has just a regular shirt and she has like an underneath type shirt type thing, and one of her boob pops out. And after that happens, I kid you not, everybody, like all the kids in the show just starts ripping on her big time. They're clowning on her. They're just making fun of her, and just all because of like her boobs. And they are hilarious. They need their own show. I mean, they're roasting the crap out of her. And so, like, as the other boys in the group are like making fun of Andy, talking about, don't you like breasts? Don't you like breasts? Next thing you know, he motorboats. It's just like, oh my God. Like, I swear, man, like, these people deserve to have their own show. They are hilarious and stuff. So one of the girls that lives there and also works there, she doesn't like Karen. She thinks she's a bad influence, and she doesn't like that the newcomer Andy did what he did. So she wants Karen out. But the other lady who works there, she's going to keep Karen. Because, a job like this, most people don't want jobs like this. And since Karen is willing to do it, she's not willing to fire her. But she tells Karen plain and simple, you need a bra. So when Karen comes back home to her apartment, we meet her roommate. And her roommate is played by none other than the legend Lonnie Anderson. Now, I remember Lonnie Anderson from WKRP in Cincinnati. That was a really cool comedy show. It was back in the 80s, all the way back in those days. But I haven't seen her in anything recent until um, Love You More. It's great to see Lonnie back on TV, and she looks great. I haven't saw her since that show in the 80s. However, one thing that always struck me is why does she have Lonnie as like a roommate? Because I believe they're about 20 to about 30, close to 40 years apart. Maybe 30, like say like 28 years apart or so in real life and in this show. And I always wonder why are they roommates? Because what would they have in common, you know? And it's so funny because the dude she was banging, even he asked that question, and she replied simply as she met her on Craigslist. I think she was desperate for like a roommate or something like that. And her roommate name is Jane. And Jane's a very sweet, kind, caring woman with this a gentle voice. You know, she's not rude or mean to anyone. And of course, then there's Karen, being her like snarky little self. She's basically tired from work and tired from everything else, and she just wants to go to her room and get drunk. And Jane reminds her that, you know, we have a dinner date tonight. And Jane's like, what are you talking about? She's like, you invited me to dinner on Facebook. And she's like, yeah, but I wasn't expecting you to like reply. So Jane's completely like all dressed up with now nowhere to go. But Karen makes it up to her and tell her, you know what? Tomorrow we can go shopping for a bra. So late at night, we do see Karen at dinner, but it's with the man. Now, these two aren't romantically linked because I believe, it's never stated, but I believe because of the way he acts and talks, he's gay. And so they're talking, but basically what they're doing is they're making, well, he found the wallet of the dude that she banged from the bar. And both of them are berating this guy, just making fun of him for no reason. And I'm just like, isn't she supposed to be like the star of the show? Why is she constantly making fun of people? And it's just like, I don't get it. And for the longest time, it's not explained, but let's put a pin in that later. So he's talking to her about her love life and how like she needs a good guy, and she's talking about how she can't find no good guy. And then he brings up the kids, or I should say, maybe they are adults, because he brings them up, the adults that she worked with. And he's like, why don't you just date one of them? You love them so much. And she says, in this very ominous way, with her head down, in a very sad voice, they're too good for her. I'm just like, what? I'm just like, so, okay, apparently she knows that there's something wrong with her, but we, the audience, do not know what that is because it's never explained. And it's kind of baffling because, you know, we see her at bars, she's getting hit on by guys, so clearly people are into her. But it's kind of like, what is it? What is it about her that makes her the way she is? And then he starts to make fun of her, telling her that, you know, oh, we're at the restaurant with that guy you're like having an affair with because there's a guy that's married. And so we later on see this guy. It's the same dude from the show Mistresses. And like, it's funny because he plays a chef in that show. He plays a chef in this. So Simon is a married man. And for some bizarre reason, he cheats on his wife. Why? Like, I don't know. It's never explained. Like, we're never given a reason as to why he cheats on his wife. We don't know the first thing about her. But later on in this episode, we will see a picture of her. And it's kind of like, it doesn't make no sense. It's really nice to explain what's wrong with his wife as to why he wants to cheat. And why Karen is willing to have an affair. Like, basically, she just sleeps around. And it's just like, in this kind of soulless kind of way. And it's just like, well, what happened to her in the past that could have caused this, you know? So she says she's gonna, I think, go talk to him about something, or maybe go to the restroom. But then Lewis finds her making out with Simon. And they're just making out, and he catches them, and it's awkward, so then they later on stop. So Karen and Jane are at the like boutique type store, and they're looking for a bra. and they're greeted by a woman who works there. And the woman's actually pretty nice and everything. She's not really too snarky, but like she's actually a pretty nice person. She's very helpful. So it's like Karen wants to find a bra, but she thinks she's like a double D or something like that. And the lady's all like, "You are clearly not no double D. You gotta be at least a E. And these little bras aren't gonna fit you." Cause Karen wants a very sexy bra. But then the lady points up above to like the well, Karen calls them like granny bras and everything that are for like bigger breasted women, and she doesn't want that. She wants something that's more like sexy and stuff. But the sexier stuff isn't built for women of like that size. So then Jane confronts the worker, and she's all like, "You're not a very nice woman, and my roommate just wants this and that, and you're not being very helpful and stuff." So as Karen is hearing this in the dressing room, she starts to get really sad, and then something strange happens in the show. She starts monologuing to herself, talking about how like she had this one tooth come in and people call her Fang, and then next thing you know, when she started to get older in school, she said that her nipples came in first, not her breasts, but like her nipples. And when you look at Bridget, her breasts are huge. Okay, so it's kind of like, I don't know if this is like a true story she's telling, or is she just making this up for the show. But she said they used to call her a little nippy tippy or something like that, and they used to always constantly call her that. And she ran home and she told her mom, and her mom told her, "Be proud of what you got and to hold them up high." And then she starts to bust out in song. She literally busts out in a complete like dance number song, talking about her breasts and had to hold them up high, and she calls her breasts all kinds of like different names, and it's just like the monologue in the song are funny, but they just came out of like completely nowhere. So it's kind of like, what kind of direction is this show going into? And then at the end of the song, she completely like opens up her bra and she exposes her breasts. I'm like, well, it's about freaking time. I mean, if I had to see that dude hung like a horse, literally, I mean, then at least I got something to see out of this. And it's kind of like, because she's very known for always showing her breasts in like cabaret type stuff. Because she's a very flashy type, exposing woman who has no modesty. You know what I'm saying? Like, she just goes all out and just like gets raunchy with her cabaret stuff. And so I was wondering what took her so long, because, in her cabaret stuff, she does this like all the time. So then she finally does it. And then after the musical, I'm just like, okay, this kind of reminded me a little bit of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend with the whole singing and stuff. And so I'm like, okay, so this show is taking a little bit of inspiration from that. Bridget has like a singing background, and so it's kind of like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But it's kind of like the thing with Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, they sing throughout the entire show, like from like they'll start and they'll stop and they'll start again. But with this, it was just like one number that came completely out. And then after the song and the the monologue, I'm just like, wait a minute. She just revealed something that I've been kind of complaining about since the beginning of the show. People made fun of her when she was little. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, so that's why she's so rude to like everybody else, because she talked about how she had that one tooth that came in and it took a while for the rest of her other teeth to grow in, and people call her Fang. And so people were making fun of her because of that. Then they started making fun of her because of the whole nipple thing. And I'm all like, oh, okay, so that's why, she's the way she is. But that would have been helpful to know very early on in the episode. Not wait until halfway towards the middle, towards kind of like the end, where it's kind of like you monologue about it, but people kind of like brush that aside and don't really pay attention because people think you're having this weird comedic moment, Now, the thing about Max and Two Broke Girls is that when she's constantly berating people, she's also telling people about like her past and how bad stuff has happened early on in the beginning. Then with Christy and Mom, we know why she is the way she is, because she used to be on drugs and alcohol, and she was a bad like parent in the past. So we knew that from the get-go of the start. So it would have been helpful to know that about Karen early on. Now, with the monologue of her talking about people making fun of her, it would have been nice to see that in a flashback. Because most of the time, people wants to see things and not hear it. And in this case, it would have been better if they would have shown it. However, even though it's revealed people made fun of her, they only made fun of her tooth and her nipples growing in before her breast came in. So it's kind of like, so okay, I understand that's why she's rude and snarky, but why does she sleep around? That makes no sense. Now she is a large woman, and like I said before, a lot of men don't like large women, but they do, and they do it in secret. But it's kind of like we see she clearly can get a guy, so we don't understand why she sleeps around town so much. So when Karen gets back, she is in her room because her roommate is watching TV. Her roommate is watching like homicides and stuff, all the things. And so Karen's in her room getting drunk like always, and she's on the internet. Time to unpin something. Now remember when I said there was a picture of Simon's wife? Well, before she started seeing the post of Jane's kids' comments, she was looking through pictures of Simon's page. And we see a picture of his wife. Once again, it's never explained why he's cheating on her. And more so, the look on her face shows that she really likes him. And so it makes her character look even worse because she's panning for this married man that she knows she can't have because he's not going to leave his wife. He'll sleep around, but he's not going to leave his wife. So when Karen gets back, she is in her room because her roommate is watching TV. Her roommate is watching like homicides and stuff, all the things. And so Karen's in her room getting drunk like always, and she's on the internet. And she's looking at her roommate's Facebook page. See, when they was in the boutique, her roommate wanted to take a picture of both of them, but Karen didn't want to because Karen's Karen. And so she just took a selfie of Jane, and Jane posted it on her Facebook. Now, earlier in this episode, something I didn't mention, Jane mentions that her husband, I believe, is divorced, or maybe he's dead. I think they're divorced. I don't know. I can't remember. They're no longer together. And she has 2 daughters. And she said her daughters fought over who gets to have her. Now, we see on Jane's Facebook post, both her daughters are being extremely, actually, they might be her daughters or her granddaughters. Because of her age, they might be her granddaughters. But anyway, I think it might be her daughters. Anyway, they're being extremely rude and nasty for Jane for no apparent reason. And it's really hurtful because it's kind of like, okay, now we see why Jane is so desperate to be around people and to have friends because she doesn't have friends. Her own family doesn't even want her. So that's really, really sad. And I'm glad they brought this up because, you know, that one throwaway line of they fought whoever gets to get her and why she's so desperate is kind of like now we see why. And so now her character is a little bit more fleshed out, more so than the Karen character, which is bizarre because, you know, she's the roommate, she's the side character, and side characters aren't supposed to be that fleshed out. The main character is supposed to be fleshed out. So Karen starts to have a change of heart and she goes to hang out with Jane because now she feels bad for her. And that's nice to see that, okay, so now it's like, okay, Karen is an actual nice person and she can do nice things. It would have been a little bit nicer to see that early on, but I understand why they wanted to wait. And so they watched the little homicide show together. And so towards the end, when Karen's back at work, she's doing her job like always. And then Andy decides to grab her boob, which I think one of the other boys tells him to. So then he gets in trouble and Karen talks to him. And she tells him, you know, straight up, you know, what you're doing is not okay. This is way before the Me Too era happened too. So she tells him straight up, you know, this is not cool. You know, you have no right to touch people like that. And then in a very sad and touching moment, he reveals to her that he likes boys. And then she doesn't quite get it at first. She's all like, well, you know, she likes guys too. But then he's like, no, you know, like he's gay. And then she totally gets why he's acting the way he does because he doesn't want the other boys to know he's gay. So he thinks if he starts touching her boobs and stuff, that they will not think that. And she tells them in a very touching way, it's okay to be who you are and you shouldn't be ashamed. Well, she doesn't say that exactly, but she does it in her own little way. It would have been more touching if she would have said it like that. But she says it in her sarcastic kind of way that it's okay to be who you are and stuff. And then after that, after she's done with work, she leaves and then she adjusts her bra and then she walks off and then that's the show. Like I said, this is a really good show. Like I really like it. It has heart, it has emotion. However, they should have named it as a dramedy instead of a comedy because with this show, there's no laugh track, there's no music in the background, there's no sharp one-liner jokes, so it doesn't really feel that much like a comedy. And since it's more drama-driven with humor in it, it feels more like a dramedy. The only problem I do have with this show is the main character herself. She's not entirely fleshed out. We truly don't really understand for the longest time why she is the way she is and why she does the things she does. I think if they would have explained that just one throwaway line, it would have been better where audience could kind of relate with her. But for now, audience is kind of like, you suck, you know what I'm saying? Like you're just a terrible person. But then we don't see that she's a nice person until like the end. And with the whole explaining why she is the way she is, it would have been nice if she would have just like we would have seen like one of her old childhood like classmates see her in town and make fun of her. Then we'd be like, oh, okay, that's why she's so rude. And then when the monologue comes in the dressing room, then we're like, oh, okay, now we get it. As for the whole sleeping around thing, that still should have been explained, but they were probably hoping they'll get picked up. But sometimes you can't always hope. Just like a show ends on a cliffhanger season finale, you can't always hope. You just got to sometimes just like show all your cards. So that's my review of this show. It sucks that Amazon didn't pick it up. I like Bridget. I think she deserves to have her own show, or at least be like co-star or something, because she really does deserve it. And this woman, she been in the industry for like a good long time. So here's the hoping. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.